I don't know about you guys, but when I did my first playthrough of Doom the Dark Ages, I ended up using the super shotgun for most of the game, but then later on in following playthroughs, I ended up completely replacing it with the Impaler and other weapons, to the point that I basically was never using the super shotgun. And I pretty much just ignored the combat shotgun in all of my runs up until this point, so I thought it would be fun to beat the game using only the shotguns. Now, since I've already beat the game without using any weapons, we're going to make things a little bit harder than the rules in that run. So for this one, we will not be upgrading our shield or any runes, but we will be allowed to use the shield still. I'm also allowing melee because that gives us ammo drops, and also the melee isn't something that just completely removes the need for weapons. In my no guns run, I had so much downtime spent just waiting around for melee charges, so I don't feel bad about allowing myself to use melees in this run. On top of that, my previous challenge runs were done on Ultraviolence, but this one is going to be done on default Nightmare instead. Other than that, the only real rules are that these shotguns are the only weapons that we can use. So let's get into the video. We start things off in the village of Khim, and this level's pretty easy because you were kind of intended to just do the entire thing with the shotgun anyway. So one failed speedrun trick later, and we were ready to take on the last part of the mission, which is the beach fight, which recently got buffed up by a patch from id and has a bunch more enemies in it now. But still, it's not too bad because you were still kind of expected to be using the combat shotgun a lot here anyway. So the interesting thing about doing shotguns only in this game is that it's definitely not the hardest challenge run out there. But it does make you change up how you play quite a bit because you have to be full on aggressive all the time, and that can get you killed, so that's where the challenge comes from here. That said, my other challenges, even being on lower difficulty settings, were still harder than this one. So let me know in the comments if you enjoy this style, or if you want to see me take on harder challenges than this one. But a few enemies later, we finished up with this fight, and we were ready to get onto the turret section here. And I decided to increase the game speed for the turret section just because these take freaking forever anyway. I don't really like playing the game at 150% game speed normally. It just feels like I'm very out of control, and everything just feels kind of wrong. Especially the gravity making you fall so much faster, it just feels very wrong to me, and I much prefer playing at normal game speed. But these parts are really boring, so I went ahead and just sped it up. And here we load into the next mission, Habth, and things get a lot more interesting here because we're expected to make use of the new weapons we get, and we're also given access to gold, which is going to be our source of our first few upgrades. Something I'm going to do in this run as well is prioritize the shotgun over any other upgrades first, just to minimize any reliance on my non-gun weapons as well. And like I said in the intro, we also won't be upgrading the shield at all. Once we push a little bit farther, we're introduced to the Hell Knight, and well, these guys are kind of designed to be shotgunned anyway since they like to get in your face, so they don't end up being too much of a problem for us. They also get into a glory kill state if you do a 3-hit melee combo on them with the unupgraded Power Fist, so I make use of that on one of them too. But obviously I don't have enough melee charges to do that to everybody, so we use our shotgun on the rest. No problem so far though. And in here we get our first set of gold, where we immediately get an upgrade for our combat shotgun, allowing it to scorch after doing continuous damage to enemies. This gets even better a little bit later on, but for now, this just gives us a little bit more sustainability against tougher enemies. And in this fight we're introduced to one of the worst enemies in this run, or at least one of the most annoying, and that is the energy shield dudes. Since we aren't upgrading our shield, we have to individually bounce them one at a time to kill them, or we have to spin around them and make them look away from us to shoot them. Since we don't have access to plasma weapons, and again we're not upgrading the shield to let it bounce between them, we are extremely slow at taking them out. But with only a couple of them in this room, it isn't too bad, and we make use of the barrel to troll this Hell Knight, which I thought was pretty funny. And here we have to fight a Mancubus, so I make use of the shield saw and start dumping into him with the shotgun, getting a bunch of armor back in return. You also fight a second Mancubus later on, and this fight was also buffed in the latest patch to add some imps to it. I believe they added a couple of stone imps and a few big ass imps as well. And with that fight done, we get access to our next weapon for the run. Wait, wrong challenge. This fight is kind of fun because if you do it quickly enough, you only have to kill 2 enemies. Pretty much I used a melee combo and some combat shotgun shots, then you hop up here and kill the Hell Knight nice and quick, and if you kill them fast enough, then the rest of the room just despawns for you. This is also what I do whenever I'm running Ultra Nightmare, but obviously I use stronger weapons than the combat shotgun. And this fight is normally a fairly hard one, mostly because you're locked into a small space with all the enemies here, and they also added some invis dudes because, you know, that's always fun. But we were able to shred through this fight just like the rest, and with the added benefit of having Scorch on the combat shotgun, our armor was staying full for most of the fights, especially since as I've been playing this game more, I've obviously gotten better at doing it, and I'm just able to take less damage now as I play. And for the final area of this mission, we have a large-scale fight out here, and there's a bunch of shield guys that take forever to take out, but overall we have enough space to work with and a decent amount of cover, so nothing ends up giving us too much trouble. After that, we get our first upgrade boss here, which is going to be this boss Pinky with armor. At this stage in the game, we don't have anything that actually counters armor, but fortunately, since we're allowed to use the shield, we can parry back his projectiles, which is our best choice right now. And after breaking his armor, we're able to dig into his health. We're still getting pretty hard carried by the Scorch from the combat shotgun, but the longer we play the game for, the more damage the demons that we face do to us, and this ends up falling off the farther we get in. But here in the early game, with decent use of our shield, and making use of the combat shotgun the entire time, we have a very nice form of sustainability. They did add some more enemies during the boss fight from the latest patch, and they kind of threw me off because I wasn't expecting them, but even with all of that thrown in, we were able to take this boss down. And since the mech sections are pretty much unchanged for the challenge, and also very boring, we're just going to skip over them. And I ran past everything I could, so there isn't really much to cover anyway. And first thing, getting into Sentinel Barracks, we're given access to the Ravager, Pulverizer, the Ravagizer, I don't know, these guns are basically the same thing. But that's not a shotgun, so we won't be using it. And normally in a regular run, I would have had the shield upgraded to have an extended reach, and it would be super effective in here, but since we don't have that, it's not doing the best job. But fortunately, we got the upgrade that makes the combat shotgun cause explosions on scorched enemies that are taken down, which helps a lot with our mob clearing in here. Although the shield is still super strong, even unupgraded. I also noticed that they added some more big-ass imps to this fight, which previously weren't in there in older patches, so that was something that made the fight a little bit more interesting, because before it was pretty much just all fodder in here. But yeah, this fight wasn't very hard, and we were ready to push deeper into the level. Farther in, and we go into this little trap room, which is kind of scary at first, and normally I just use the Ravagizer to get through this part, but this time I was using the shotgun instead, and mixed with parries, which for some reason were still stunning all the demons in the area, even though I thought that was a shield upgrade. This part didn't end up being too hard, you just have to make sure you're keeping the enemies in front of you. You can parry stuff that's behind you, but it's hard to do because you can't see when they're doing it, so that's the only real problem. But if you were really good with the threat detector, you could probably just do it without even looking at them. Then in this room, I barrel trolled these dudes. I think it's kind of funny because my first few runs of this game, I didn't know you were supposed to use barrels on these, and I was just really confused why they threw like 5 Hell Knights at us here all at once. And now we get our first ruby of the game, and we're not going to need a lot of rubies, pretty much just enough to upgrade the shotguns and the melee weapons that we want to use. And of course, then we're given access to the Impaler, which is pretty much the best weapon in the game. So you guys know what that means. I kept using the combat shotgun. And just like a lot of the other early fights, this also had a lot more enemies added to it in the latest patch, including some big ass imps, some stone imps which actually threw me off, and I think there was even more pinkies than there already were, so just the fight got a whole lot harder. And of course, normally doing this with the Impaler, it would be no problem because the Impaler just destroys everything, but the combat shotgun is definitely not the intended weapon for this fight, and I ended up having a couple of close calls throughout it. But we were still able to keep on going strong, and I've still managed not to die. Although, as it generally goes with these things, early on I won't die for a while, and then I'll just die a bunch the moment I have the slightest problem. And after that, we're given access to an upgrade station, where we spend our ruby on the next upgrade for the combat shotgun. I grabbed the one that makes it so fodder demons are instantly scorched, and I went with this so that way I could cause more explosions using that perk on it, and the main reason I did this was just because I wanted to try it, because I hadn't before. In the past, the only time I ever used the combat shotgun was just to farm armor off of tough demons using the 3-round burst and the increased armor drop perks. So I thought I'd try the other side of the weapon perks this time. And also, while I'm not going to be a speedrunner for this game, I have learned some of the basic movement tech from speedrunners just because it's kind of fun to do. So I'll casually just have cool movement like that occasionally in the background, which is always fun to see. Eventually, we get an armor upgrade boss in this fight, and normally I can just melt him down with the Impaler in like 6 shots, but he actually takes a while to take out with the combat shotgun. On top of that, they added more enemies to this fight, especially some lost souls which I were not ready for. And since it broke my shield and we won't be upgrading the shield, it takes forever to recover the shield. So I have to make sure I'm playing the shield really well, otherwise it'll break and I'll be left defenseless for a really long time. But a lot of shooting and parrying later, and we get this guy into the glory kill state, and we rip his heart out for that sweet, sweet armor upgrade. Then just before the boss fight, I decided to upgrade the melee gauntlet, which is something I normally ignore and pretty much have never used outside of the no weapons run. And originally I was planning to just hold out for the flail and use that, but I figured why not. The point of this run was kind of just to try new stuff, so using the power gauntlet would be on brand for that for me. And from there, we're ready to start the Vagary Champion boss fight, and this ends up taking quite a while. Pretty early on, I switched to the DPS setup here since we're not going to be fighting any fodders anyway, and this makes us do damage quite a bit quicker, although it does also make the shotgun absolutely chew through ammo. Also at this point, I still had the setting on that would make me switch weapons automatically whenever I ran out of ammo, so that was what was going on here. Eventually though, I was able to get a stagger on the boss and use my melees on him to recover my ammo, but I'm still just absolutely melting through my ammo like this. But we get a great chunk of damage here with this stun, and from there a bunch of mancubuses spawn, which is new to the latest patch. But they're actually kind of helpful because meleeing the boss is pretty difficult to do, but meleeing the mancubuses is no problem because we can just buzzsaw them. And this fight gave me a couple of really close calls, but we were able to make it through just barely on the first try. I'm still not sure whether or not the mancubuses made this harder or easier, because having other demons to stack up health and stuff on is really nice, but obviously they're also shooting more projectiles, which can cause you more damage. And now we're on to the first dragon level, and if you've seen my videos before, you already know what that means. It's time for me to complain about this segment where we do a long animation landing our dragon. Hop out and throw our shield at this thing opening the door. Then watch yet another cutscene, and another, we have to skip 2 of them. Wait on this door to open even though it could have done that during the cutscene, and then watch another cutscene as we hop onto our dragon for a nice long animation, before you guessed it, another cutscene. This is what peak gameplay looks like, I love it. At least there's this silly thing that the speedrunners found where you can spam click with the energized shots on the dragon, and it'll let you shoot it ridiculously quickly. And we use that to take out this titan and land on the first secret fight, where we do this fight with an upgrade boss and a bunch of demons. And this one is another armored Pinky Rider. But between having an upgraded melee and the DPS perks on our combat shotgun, we're able to break his armor pretty quickly, and then finish him off for a nice health upgrade. I actually didn't know about this secret for the longest time, and was just missing a third of all the loot in this level for like the longest time. After that we hop back on our dragon and we have to go and blow up these ships. I use the rapid fire trick a little bit more to take everything down, and in the latest patch they buffed the dragon so that you have the energized shots for way longer, and it makes it a lot more bearable. Also, I do it like this instead of taking out a ship and then landing on it, that way I don't have to sit there and wait for it to crash before landing on it. So it just saves me like 10 seconds of staring at animations and doing nothing. And hey, that's 10 seconds I could spend doing something else productive, is what I would have said if I didn't spend more than 10 seconds explaining why I did it in this voiceover. Doing the fights in these ships is kind of filled with fodder spam, and normally this is entirely solved by the shield once you have the upgrade that lets it reflect between energy shields. You could just toss the shield into the crowd and it kills everyone, but we have to kill everyone manually because we don't have any shield upgrades. Looking back on it with hindsight now, I definitely liked that I didn't upgrade the shield, and I think if I do any similar runs in the future of this game, I'm probably also not going to upgrade the melee weapons. I think that that was a bad idea for the run. Let me know your thoughts in the comments if you agree or if you think I should just be allowed to have free reign. Overall though, I'm not going for challenges that are just pure pain like a lot of challenge runners do. Instead, I use challenges to find new ways to play the game that I haven't already done, and it also makes me have to think about how to adapt to situations where I can't do things that I normally do. For example, there isn't a single cyber demon in the game that you can't just destroy with the impaler, but now I have to find ways to kill it without. Oh yeah, and also because we did what we did with these ships on the dragon section earlier, we can do this to get up there, which also feels really cool. But I'll spare you all watching the full animation. Also, another silly thing I'm able to make use of in this run is actually the jump stomp. Similar to how I was using it in the early game of the no shield run, it's actually kind of useful against the energy shield guys in this run once they show up later, because that is one of the few ways I can kill them en masse. But for now, it's not really that big of a deal since they're not showing up too often. But here in the earlier stages of the game, I am just kind of ripping and tearing through everything. And unlike the usual in modern Doom games, the difficulty in this run ends up picking up later on in the game, because there are a lot of demons that punish extreme aggression later on, but right now we don't have to deal with any of them. But later on, enemies like the Kako demon that make me stall out and wait for them to do their attacks end up causing me a lot of grief. Next up, we're introduced to the Battle Knight as a boss fight, and we end up having a decent fight with him. Since I'm already familiar with his attacks, we're able to parry him down pretty well. But one thing I noticed since doing the no weapons run is that there seems to be a shorter duration of stagger, and I'm not sure if that's just from the patches, or if there's actually just a shorter setting on the days duration on Nightmare. But enemies were oftentimes able to get their attacks off before I could do the third hit that would normally stumble them, which was a staple of the no weapons run, and something that I just wasn't able to do here that made me have to adapt. And even deeper into the level, we're given access to the super shotgun, our other weapon. And with the latest patch, the super shotgun just suffered a nerf, so it no longer does nearly as much damage to armor as it used to. That said, it's still a very nice weapon, however we still have plenty of reasons to use the combat shotgun, especially as a utility choice to get back armor, or for the explosions to kill fodder quickly since we don't have a very effective shield. That said, I still consider the Impaler to just be a better weapon than the super shotgun for pretty much every scenario once you get used to its drop and its projectile speed. Even enemies that move around a lot aren't a problem because you can just stun them using shield bashes or the buzzsaw. And the few enemies that you can't stagger with the buzzsaw, you could just use like the Accelerator or the Ravager or something like that, because that pretty much exclusively applies to Revenant bosses, which are pretty few and far between. Also, I was a little bit worried by this secret fight, but I still wanted to do it just because I thought it'd be interesting. But by using the explosions on the combat shotgun, we were able to get past the fodder spam no problem, and then a mix of super shotgun and melee hits to finish off the Mancubus for the end got us through that secret no problem. Eventually, we make it to the final area where we upgrade our super shotgun, and at this point I realized I messed up because I forgot to grab the secret that would have not only given us a ruby pickup, but also given us the third cultist circle we needed to get us a ruby for the mission challenge. So because of that, I didn't have the increased armor damage for this vagary on the super shotgun, which made the fight a lot harder. On top of that, they added a bunch of seemingly infinitely respawning Mancubuses to this fight, and the minigun shield dudes, so this fight is a whole lot worse than it used to be. But despite all the close calls we had, we were able to recover from all of them and get through it. I also want to mention that similar to the no weapons run, I decided since I wasn't dying very often, that I wouldn't make use of life sigils for this run, because if I did then I literally wouldn't have any deaths and would never have to load checkpoints, and using them would pretty much just allow me to completely circumvent a failure. Overall, I'm not the biggest fan of life sigils, but when it comes to harder challenges like when I did no shields, I don't mind using them for that. This fight did get a lot more interesting with the additional enemies. I had to go back and forth between clearing out the mobs and doing damage to the vagary to progress the fight. Once you kill the vagary, the enemies will stop respawning and you can just finish off whatever's remaining to end the fight. So we take him down and then the Mancubus after him, which lets us finish off this level. And we're greeted by a large fight going into Siege Part 1, but fortunately the Mancubuses decide to stand next to barrels because they are very intelligent beings, and we're able to shoot those barrels instead of having to actually deal with them. At this point in the run, I was still kind of deciding whether or not I preferred the combat shotgun or the super shotgun for things, but as we get later into the video, I end up leaning more and more on just the super shotgun, but the combat shotgun still has plenty of uses throughout the entire run, and we do go back and forth quite a bit still. This fight didn't end up giving me too many problems. And with these last guys taken care of, we got the objective ticked off and we're ready to move on to the next group. I decided to do the secret fight here so that I could get the ruby and get the upgrade for my super shotgun. And so we get this closed off little area with a bunch of enemies that spawn in, but if you can take care of the Mancubus quickly, then you have enough space and a decent spot to take care of everything else. And since we're still kind of in the early part of the game, things are still kind of easy, since we haven't been introduced to the harder demons that start showing up in Siege Part 2 and afterwards. So we finish those fellas off, grab our ruby, purchase our upgrade, and are ready to get going. Siege 1 has a ton of golden rubies for us to pick up, which is really nice being an early level because it lets us get a lot of our upgrades knocked out quickly. So I go ahead and grab the secret key and hop into this secret area where we're going to get a bunch of gold and a ruby. After that we get into this silly little arena which is full of barrels. So you know what that means. We are going to barrel troll basically all the enemies because barrels do a lot of damage, especially in the early game compared to our weapons. Of course at this point normally you'd already have the Impaler so you don't need them, but you know, barrels are still pretty good. The combat shotgun is actually one of the better weapons for hitting barrels too, so it's not too hard to make use of them in this. We pretty much just have to watch out for the stone imps because they can catch us off guard if we're not paying attention. After that we get brought into the area that gives us the chainball gun, but instead of picking that up, I decided to remind everybody that this is in fact a Doom game, and just walk through this wall by holding the weapon wheel up, because that's a thing. And then we get into this leader fight which has a cyber demon in it, the first time we're dealing with one among a crowd. And you can see I'm still a little bit awkward fighting him with weapons that aren't the Impaler, and I also keep getting smacked out of my melee for whatever reason. Normally the third and fourth hit of the melee combo staggers them, but I was having some trouble timing all my stuff out, and ended up taking a bunch of damage to him, but eventually we were able to take him down, but not without some close calls. But the leader ended up killing me, and it kind of caught me off guard because I had a decent chunk of health already, which means I didn't have the one-shot protection for whatever reason here. But yeah, we've taken a death now. And like I said earlier, I won't be using life sigils just because I think they would make the run a little bit too easy. But in my next try, we were able to take him down, and the super shotgun does great chunks of damage against Mancubuses because they're a big enough target, and it has a very horizontal spread. But as you guys can see, the game is starting to ramp up in difficulty, and the amount of power that we're going to have is not going to scale very well with it. And here in the next fight, wow, this looks familiar, we have another Cyber Demon in a leader fight, and this time we're able to take him down without too much of an incident. I also try using the combat shotgun on him, and it does pretty good. And it also helps keep our armor stacked up, especially on tanky enemies where the 3-round burst and increased armor drops really help out. After that we have the leader, which this time is going to be a Pinky, and combining the shock from the melee gauntlet and the big burst damage we get from the super shotgun, this guy goes down really quickly. The Pinky enemies are really easy. The only real thing that can stumble you up on them is if you ever decide to use a BFG on one of them, they will always tank it if the rider is on top, and you have to do just a little bit more damage to actually kill them. They have some kind of one-shot protection against it. But yeah, that's the armor upgrade gotten, and this is pretty much the end of the level. So let's hop on into Siege Part 2, where we start off with a very stinky turret section. Then we kill this Mancubus, who's all on his own for some reason. Punch this box. Pull this lever. And now we're faced by our first Revenant, and they are the first annoying enemy of the game, I'd say. The Revenants can just make themselves invincible and shoot parryable projectiles at you, which obviously isn't the end of the world, but they're kind of annoying to dodge, and sometimes they just shoot a bunch of non-parryables at you first, and they have insane amounts of seeking that are just really hard to dodge, so you want to take them out as soon as you can. But in the first instance, we're given the opportunity to just buzzsaw them right away, so he's not that big of a deal. And next up we have another Revenant, but once again we can just do a buzzsaw on him, and then we do a super shotgun follow-up, which brings him down to the glory kill state. And yeah, nothing else down here ends up being too much of a problem. And just a little bit more fighting later, we make our way to the outside section. And this place has some more good fights for us, and of course a couple of close calls. There's going to be a lot of close calls throughout this run, but now that I've played the game a few more times than I did in previous runs, I'm a little bit better at stacking back up when I get low and recovering from problems, especially now that I've been doing some Ultra Nightmare attempts. I've actually been doing them live on stream, and once we do get a successful Ultra Nightmare run, I'll make sure to do a video about it. For now though, we have this final fight area, which has a super boost on it for if we get low, which makes it pretty safe for taking on all the enemies, because if something goes wrong, I could just throw up my shield and go walk on the super boost, and it's like nothing ever happened. After clearing enough enemies, we get up to the Cyber Demon, and I'm still kind of having trouble finding my rhythm on them using the melees. You can see I'm doing a lot of getting hit while also parrying somehow. I don't really know what's up with that. Or in this case, I managed to get that animation. I don't know, the Cyber Demons just have a lot of weird stuff with them. And this one ends up killing me just because I skill issue a parry. But in my next try, we're able to take him down, and I end up just moving at an even faster pace, which is pretty much the name of the game with the shotguns. We have to play really aggressively, so we're constantly losing health because it's just a fact of playing so aggressively. But the shotguns are able to kill enemies very quickly in close range, so it's kind of a give and take. It's definitely not the safest way to play the game, but it's definitely not a terrible way either. This fight's pretty fun because you have a bunch of Hell Knights chasing you the whole time alongside the boss Hell Knight, but it's not actually that hard to just parry them. The main thing is to just keep everyone in front of you so that you can see when you need to do your parries. And now we've made it to the forest, which is a bit of an interesting level because it introduces yet another one of the annoying enemies we're going to have for the rest of the run. And you guys probably already know, it's these fuckers. Fortunately, just one good super shotgun blast gets them pretty low on health, which is actually a pretty good way of taking them down because normally it takes 2 charged up or 3 regular impaler shots, which is kind of hard to land on them. So maybe I should be using the super shotgun more often in my regular playthroughs. Fortunately, in the latest patch, they fixed it so that parrying their melee attacks now does return your melee energy, which would have been pretty helpful for the no weapons run. But oh well, we got that done already. Maybe someday we'll revisit it with my current knowledge on a better build, and playing on Nightmare instead of Ultraviolence. The early part of this level revolves around this arena a couple of times, but the main fight happens after you get the yellow keycard, where we face a bunch of whiplashes and also some revenants. This is also where we start to see a ramp up in the number of energy shield walls, or just the big groupings of guys with energy shields, which is pretty annoying for this run. You'll see occasionally whenever I have the chance to, I make use of the ground slam being one of the few things that can actually get around the energy shield. And I make good use of the supercharge here once I get low on health and armor, and with that we're able to finish off the fight without too much of a problem. Here we have another Cyber Demon fight, and this one goes a little bit better for me, and I make proper use of the melees and shotgun hits. Later on in the game, these guys won't be much of a problem either, just because I get used to using the super shotgun on them again. Then here I do a mini version of a shield charge boost, and just run past these dudes making use of the grapple, and I think you'd be surprised just how many enemies you can run past in this game that are not required for you to progress. There's plenty of required arenas, but a lot of the intermittent combat can just be run past, and I think that always catches people off guard in these games. And next up we get into a pretty large scale fight here before we shoot the turret to open up the wall. There is a ton of stuff going on in this large arena, but fortunately the demons are spread out enough that it's not too bad to take care of everything. I do get my shield broken here, which is unfortunate because it takes forever to recharge, something I'm noticing more and more the longer I'm playing, because at this point in the game you are expected to have shield upgrades and I don't have any. But we are able to just methodically pick down the demons one at a time, and eventually this upgrade boss spawns in, and once we take care of him we'll be done with the fight. And since pinkies don't have all that much health, it's not too hard to take him down, and we're ready to push farther into the level. And here we're able to grab the grenade launcher from this weapon cache, and obviously immediately put it on our backpack and never use it. Really glad you're required to pick these up to progress normally. Oh, and here I managed to hit a real shield charge boost, but right into a wall to just lose all the speed, so that was unfortunate. But it is fun getting that kind of speed in this game, because you're very much so intended to be a fat piece of shit in this game. And one short fight later and we're faced with the Agadon champion. But unfortunately I skill issue really quickly and end up getting killed by him really fast. So that's a little bit awkward. But next time, I make use of what I'm going to call gun jousting, which in this case with the super shotgun is just shooting the shotgun, and then while it's on cooldown for its fire rate, holding up the shield making sure I don't take any damage. And it's a very safe way to play. And the thing is that you can always just put the shield down and then immediately put it back up to hit parries in this state, so it's not even a big deal that you're holding down the button. And with that guy taken care of, we're done with the level. And here we are on Ancestral Forge, and this level is a pretty important one for two main reasons. The first one being we'll get access to our first shield rune, and on top of that this level also has the first Wrathstone of the game. And it's very nice to have on the shotguns because the Wrathstone upgrade is just a direct increase in damage. So we're starting off by moving towards the farthest wolf statue, and that's going to be the first thing we're going after, is getting a Wrathstone so that way we have more damage for our weapons. And in this fight we get a demonstration of the stomp working on the shield guys, which is a very nice way to take them out like I've been talking about. This fight is just filled with shield dudes, I don't know what's the deal with it, but yeah, that was a lot of armor, thanks guys. So this fight doesn't give me any trouble. And we're ready to pull the first lever, and head here for our first wolf statue, which has a vagary fight for us to deal with. Fortunately now we have the upgrade that increases our damage against armor using the super shotgun, so we'll be able to pop his armor quite a bit faster than we could in the past. But of course that doesn't stop me from breaking my shield and needing to hide until I get it back. But it does take us a while. I much prefer using the ball gun and the impaler instead of just the super shotgun. It's kind of like a jack of all trades weapon, but it's not really amazing at any one thing. But he goes down, and then we just have a couple of flutters to clean up after that, and that'll bring down the barrier around the wolf statue, letting us take it down. After this random waste of time, of course. Why it's waiting, I don't know. While we're in the area, I move into this fight, which is going to give us another lever to pull, and this one will be the second of three. This fight has an enforcer, so it's a little bit tricky because the enemies have so much more health, and for the most part I can kill enemies before they can actually do real damage to me, but that all changes when their health is tripled by an enforcer. So yeah, it's a little bit harder just because of that, but still not too bad. The enemies that we had to deal with the enforcer weren't too bad, so we finish these dudes off, and then we get to pull the lever. And with that we move on to the next fight for the lever, and there are a ton of shield guys scattered around here, but since they're just kind of on their own, I go and bounce them with the shield one by one, just spamming that shield button. And eventually a boss with an upgrade for us spawns, and thanks to the upgrade on our super shotgun we pop his armor pretty quickly, and he doesn't make it long from there either. And after that we grab the secret key, and do a little combat in this area before we head off towards the next wolf statue so that we can get the Wrathstone crystal. At this point we've done all the main objectives for the mission, and we're just in this area for a little bit longer to grab the Wrathstone, and then we'll be out of here. So we hit wolf number 2 here, and then we move into wolf number 3 and also grab the Wrathstone, which is right next to it. Hitting the last one spawns a bunch of enemies here, but you're invincible while you're picking up the Wrathstone. Then we could just hold up the shield and run away from this fight, because there is nothing making us do it, since there's no combat meter or anything in this game like there was in the previous ones. I kinda wish there was though. And after that, we have an Agadon to fight before moving into the next part of the mission, and being the goober I am, I managed to get hit twice and die to him. But with this, we spawn next to an upgrade station, so I go ahead and grab the Wrathstone upgrade for the super shotgun, giving it even more damage. And we head back in for round number 2 with the Agadon. This time we block all of his hits effectively, and land our super shotgun shots as we can, and he ends up going down for us no problem. And now we have our first fight after getting the shield rune that we got. This shield rune isn't amazing, but it does add some nice stagger to our parries, so we'll absolutely take it. We'll be getting a better rune a little bit later on though. But I've been talking pretty much the entire video, so why don't I just go ahead and show you guys some good combat. Don't interrupt me when I'm using Doom music, please. But yeah, we made it through the fight next time, and it was just a really long fight. This one always is. So it's always annoying when I'm just in the zone like that and then just get killed seemingly out of nowhere. Especially since my health wasn't flashing low or anything, I didn't really have a great way of like noticing that my health was kind of low, because 70 health is definitely low enough to get one-shotted if you've just recovered from a one-shot protection, which was of course exactly what happened. But now we've made our way into Forsaken Plains, and this is kind of the point in the game where we start picking up the pace a little bit. At this point we have most of the upgrades we want. We're going to get our next Wrathstone, and the only other one that we'll need from this mission, just doing it normally. So we're going to rush through this mission a bit and pretty much just knock out the main objectives and then continue on, and that's going to be a recurring theme for most of the coming up missions. So we're given this rocket launcher. Did a little bit of combat here. I thought it was kind of silly that we got the rocket launcher for this tight enclosed space, but they just filled it with barrels anyway that could kill everything on their own. And then we hit this sick shield charge boost. And we hit a couple of hops, but eventually run into some stairs, but we got a bunch of distance towards our objective, so that's cool. A short walk later, and we're into the first of 2 main arenas we need to do for this level. And I start off by just tossing my shield against these energy shield guys, but eventually I smarten up and just stomp on them later on. For now though, we have a bunch of guys to clear out to make way for the leader. And after clearing them up, we have a duel with a boss cyber demon. And right away, I get my shield popped by something goofy. But once we get it back, we're ready to do the duel, and it goes pretty well. Although being a boss version, he's a little bit unique because you actually have to do 3 parries instead of 2 in order to stagger him. I still had some other enemies up, so I stopped to clear them a bit because they started knocking me around. And this ends up being pretty tricky. I get health back and forth and then lose it again over and over because of his bullet fire. But eventually I'm able to get clear and stack up my health and get back to the duel. Hitting the groups of shield dudes helps because they drop health if you're low health when you kill them, and you're killing a bunch of guys all at once, and it gives you a huge bump of health. Unfortunately though, despite all of our efforts to get away, we eventually get picked off, and that means we have to restart the fight. And despite my best efforts, I end up getting killed yet again. This fight is a pretty hard one, so we have to hit yet another reset. But in the next one, we're able to get our duel with him, and it ends up being a pretty good fight. The super shotgun does pretty good chunks to his health, but being a boss and an already baseline tanky enemy to start with, it does still take quite a few shots to take him down. But eventually we take care of him and we're ready to progress further on. And now we have the second leader fight, but this one doesn't end up being too bad, and since it's not a cyber demon hitting me the entire time, it's a lot easier to get through. So we murder this Mancubus to death, and we're ready to go and grab the battery for our Atlan suit, and be almost done with this level. One vagary kill later, and one Wrathstone grabbed, and we were on our way out of this level. And the next one would be a mech level, but that's only for the first half of the level, so we're just going to skip to when the actual game starts. And this level starts off really nicely with us grabbing the best rune in the game, the Ethereal Blades. But since we aren't going to be upgrading our runes at all, the damage it does is going to be much lower than we're used to from normal runs. Remember, all 4 of the upgrades for the Holy Swarm are just pure damage upgrades, so not having access to any of them actually means the damage output isn't that high. It's just still good enough to be better than the other runes because they're also not upgraded. So we run into this combat here and get to work, and right away you can see the Holy Swarm putting in some damage, which is really nice. That said, I know that it is a pretty good way of doing damage without using the shotgun, so let me know in the comments if you think if I ever do future runs similar to this one, if I shouldn't make use of shield runes, or if I should just only use ones that don't deal damage like the Heaven Splitter. A little bit farther in and we have this very clean fight with a Cyber Demon, so it's showing that I'm starting to get a little bit more used to dueling these guys with the Super Shotgun instead of the Impaler. It's way easier to do these guys with the Impaler just because it shoots faster, and so it's way easier to time doing a shot every single attack. But the Super Shotgun's a little bit slower, so it takes some more effort. Anyway, this level's super short, there's just one more fight left, and it's this Agadon, and he didn't really give me any trouble, so we can kill him and move on to the next mission, which is going to be a much longer one, and is also what I would consider to be the start of the late game. Although that doesn't matter so much in this case, since so much of our kit isn't being upgraded anyway. And here we are on to the next level. I don't know, but we're here in this base and we're killing demons, so you know, it's just normal Doom stuff. And at this point we already have all the upgrades we need and enough stocked up to be able to get the Dread Mace maxed out once we get that. So we're looking very good on all the side objectives, and we can just push through this mission and get it done as quick as we can. The enemy encounters are starting to ramp up quite a bit now that we have access to multiple runes. The game expects you to be very powerful at this point. A good example of that being the Cyber Demon and Pinky mixed in this very tight space. You're clearly expected to make good use of the shield, and even probably have shield upgrades in case your shield does break, because you're going to be punished pretty hard if you have to sit and wait with no cover here. But we're able to get through it by using our shield properly, and it doesn't end up being too much of a problem for us. Since it is a close quarters fight, obviously shotguns are not a terrible choice for it. Eventually we make our way into this fight, which is a huge hallway that has a bunch of Enforcer fodder and some other buffed up demons alongside it. And this gave me a ton of trouble in the no shield run, so I always expect the worst here because it is kind of a hard fight. And I get my shield broken and end up dying here, so that's kind of expected. This is definitely one of the harder rooms in the entire game. But next time we do the fight a little bit better, and don't bust our shield on the Whiplash right in front of us, which definitely helps us out, and we're able to take out the Enforcer and finish off the fight. I'm actually not sure if killing the Enforcer would despawn everything, but he's really well protected by all the other enemies, so I wanted to take everybody else out anyways. If you guys do know that, let me know in the comments though. And now we're back in that starting room, where we have the next iteration of this fight, but this time with the yellow keycard, so it is a much harder fight. I decided to camp up in this room for the most part just because it is a very safe place to play it, and we're nearby a supercharge if we end up needing it. This is also how I play Ultra Nightmare here, so it's not too different from what I'm used to, except obviously I'm using the Impaler mostly on Ultra Nightmare. This ended up being a really lengthy fight, but there wasn't anything too bad for me considering the location I had. I just had to watch out for Hell Knights sneaking up on me through the side entrances and stuff. And yeah, with this door open, we're ready to finish the level and move into the next. And the next level is a dragon level, which is a little bit cringe. I feel like this entire level is just filler too, especially since the next level is also a dragon level. I feel like it would have been fine if this level just didn't exist. Also, I'm sorry about having the chat there. I actually live streamed just before doing this, and I forgot to turn off the live chat element, so I have my old live chat up on the video recording for a little bit here. It'll go away pretty soon there. It was only on for a couple of missions. Anyway, getting into the next real part of the game, we've got a leader fight here with a Mancubus upgrade boss, and he ends up going down without too much problem. The blades make it even easier because he constantly spams parryable projectiles once you get away from him, and they're very easy to hit back at him. So we take him down, we get our little ammo upgrade, and we're ready to move on to the next. And yeah, that's right, you just heard my toaster oven go off in the background. I'm leaving that in. Video game. And this time we have another leader fight, but the boss is a Revenant, which automatically makes it a pain in the ass because fuck Revenants. Which is exactly why I beat it on my first try. I don't know why they let you execute these guys while they still have a quarter of their health, but I will very much so take it. And with that, we got another armor upgrade, and are now done with this level. And here we are on Spire of Neanderthal. And this mission is a very long one. We have an intro encounter, then we have to fly to 3 big arena fights using our dragon, and then we have to do yet another arena fight to get the BFG before we can finish off. So we're in for a very lengthy level. And after that, we are faced with the Komodo champion, and the first of many Komodos throughout the run. These guys can be pretty annoying because a lot of the times you'll just be well within the parryable attack range, and they'll just shoot these projectiles that are kind of hard to dodge at you. Either way, we just get super aggressive with him, parry his hits, and it's not too bad to take him out with the super shotgun. But I much prefer using a weapon like the accelerator on him because it just absolutely cooks his shit very quickly and very easily. They actually nerfed the Ravager specifically against Komodos and bosses, so it's actually not a great weapon anymore against these dudes. But yeah, it didn't take too much effort to just take him down with the super shotgun anyway, and with him out, we can push into the dragon section of the level. Fortunately, the dragon segments are pretty short in this level, so it's not as huge of a focus as it was in the other parts of the game, but it just makes me wonder why they even exist. I would have much preferred just like a cutscene or a teleporter or something, you know? Also, I cut over it, but while we were here, we picked up the lightning rune, which I decided to try out. Without the upgrades, the blades rune isn't really doing that much damage, so I thought that the stun might be useful, and while it was, I found that the blades were just better and that I didn't really need the stun anyway. It's still probably the second best rune in the game, and I could understand why people would prefer it though. But with this fight done, we could punch this purple thing and move on towards the next one. After landing at the next point, I tried to do a shield charge boost on these guys, but I kind of messed it up, didn't get a lot of speed, and then just tried to hop my way down the hill, but it didn't go that well for me still. We did get a little bit of speed though, which was nice, and yeah, you could just run past all these guys, so there's no reason to fight them. They actually despawn when you kill this dude, so it's super easy. Being the dumbass I am though, I managed to die still. Turns out running past encounters and losing all your health is not a very safe way to play the game. Who would have guessed? So you already know the next try I did the exact same thing. But with one crucial difference, I didn't die this time. Otherwise the plan was identical. And yeah, this fight didn't end up being too difficult once I went into it with some decent health. And you could see I'm still kind of making up my mind about which weapon I like more, so I'm just kind of using both of the shotguns. The lightning rune is also giving me some pretty good value here, stunning these guys so they don't hit me back. But I kind of realized later on that the blades rune would just kill those guys, so there wasn't really any point. We did have a vagary fight here, and those are made a lot easier with the blades rune, which I'm not using for this one. And I end up having a pretty close call here, but we are able to make it through. The Revenant's kind of messing me up though. Fortunately, I can hit a glory kill on him here, which gives me some time to get the shield back in the animation, and also some health, which is very helpful. One thing I was making use of against vagaries was heating up their armor and then saving it for when I needed a stagger. But unfortunately here, I didn't quite have it at fully heated, so I had to damage it again, and then I managed to shatter it just before he got a melee hit that probably would have killed me. And that's him taken care of. And also another button pressed. There we go, that's 2. And in the next fight, we had to fight a Cacodemon, which is really annoying. Cacodemons might be the worst demon in the game to deal with, at least as far as the regular demons go. And the main reason for that is they fire out a massive wall that blocks all of your bullets, so anytime there's a Cacodemon on the field, you basically have to wait for his attacks to go through before you can hit almost anything, which tends to just stall out the fight, and definitely doesn't lend itself well to shotguns, because whenever you get close, they do a biting attack that isn't parryable. After that, we get to this part that I forgot existed, and maybe I forgot it existed because I ran past it every time, but we have this buffed up vagary, which is pretty scary, so I smarten up eventually and decide to go and find the Enforcer to get rid of his buff, because buffed up vagaries don't seem fun to deal with. Once I notice the spider carrying the flag, we head towards him and we start to take him down. Unfortunately, I lost my shield, which is definitely messing me up, but I've got decent movement here keeping me alive still. Doing the no shield run definitely helped me improve my movement and made me a little bit less of a fish out of water whenever I don't have my shield. But without the Enforcer buff, the vagary goes down without too much problem, but we are on pretty low health, so the entire situation is still quite scary. But eventually we're able to kill him, and we can go and press the button from there. And here in this part, we have one of the single greatest parts of the gameplay in this game, where we hop onto our dragon and immediately press the landing button, getting right back off of it, maybe 3 seconds after getting onto it. I will never understand why these sections exist in the game. I'm guessing it's for the secrets, but I don't know, it's so weird that it plays like that. Like, I imagine most people probably experienced it this way, and it just makes the dragon levels seem really boring. I feel like early on they realized that the dragon levels were boring and they decided to make them shorter in this one. But yeah, if it isn't clear, I'm not the biggest fan of the dragon levels. Here we hit a really cool shield charge boost, but we bonk our head and lose all of our speed. Rip, dude. But it doesn't matter, we kill this dude, smash this sword, and we go into a little bit of an arena fight here. After killing a couple of regular enemies in here, and with a couple of close calls at that, we're faced with an Agadon Hunter. But he doesn't end up being too much of a problem, and after we kill him, we're faced with both a Revenant boss and a regular Komodo at the same time. This fight is pretty chaotic, but as long as you can keep them both in front of you, it's not too bad to take them on. You just want to be ready to parry any attacks by the Revenant, because the swords will add some nice damage on. I decided to take out the Komodo first, but if you're feeling like an absolute crazy person, you can just ignore it and kill the Revenant, and that'll despawn the Komodo instead. But you could see obviously here that that wouldn't be a very good idea for me because I was getting low even dealing with the Komodo. Once we get it down to just the Revenant though, he doesn't stand a chance, and since he can be staggered by shield bashes, we're able to take him down nice and easy. Getting us a very useful, definitely helpful, and not useless at all ammo upgrade. Neat, dude. Thanks, guys. And if you watched the no guns run, you know that you're required to shoot this BFG shot, and there's no way around it. But considering it doesn't consume any ammo, I like to consider it a scripted event or part of a cutscene, and yeah, that's my cope. The real fun is doing this fight without the BFG though, since you are clearly intended to use it here. And yeah, this fight is just absolutely nuts. On top of that, we're doing it on Nightmare this time instead of Ultraviolence, which just makes things even worse. But given my experience from the no weapons run, I did know how to handle this a little bit better, so it wasn't quite the slog it was for that, especially considering we do have a gun now, which always helps of course. But that didn't mean it was easy. I still died a lot of times. Knowing that I was probably going to die a number of times here, I didn't want to have to keep pressing the no button on life sigils, and I also wanted to lock myself into it, because this time I wasn't using a life sigil like I did in the no guns run, so I wasted them here so that I had no choice. But eventually I got a good run. My strategy to start off was spamming the flail hits to get back some ammo since I was already low, and the splash would also give me a huge chunk of armor back, refilling my armor, making me able to take some more hits. From there, I'd back off a bit and start going for some parries. Since I was using the Blades rune now, it was much better than the chain gun rune I was using in the no guns run, and that helped a lot with making this part a lot easier. I also decided to use the combat shotgun so that I could stack up even more armor, and since most of the demons were heavies, they were dropping a ton of armor with the 3-round burst setup. And for the most part, I was just going back and forth between parrying projectiles and shooting them with the combat shotgun to keep my armor up so that I could keep taking hits. And this ended up being a very good strategy. This entire fight just for the successful attempt took me over 10 minutes, making it one of the longest Doom fights I've ever had. Obviously, you were expected to just immediately blow this up with the BFG, so there was no thought put into it balancing wise, but it was really brutal, and it's really funny to me because if we had the Doom Eternal Slayer, this wouldn't have even been a problem. This is just like your average Doom Eternal arena, really. Maybe your average master level arena, but yeah. Either way, we made it past this first set, and we're ready to hop down to the next. And while this set was a lot easier than the last one, it was still really hard compared to the normal game, and you don't get a checkpoint here. So if I died to these guys, I'd have to reset the entire fight, and I didn't want to do that, so I had to lock in. Which is exactly what I did, and we were able to make it through the rest of this fight without taking any more deaths. And this was a huge improvement on the last time I did this fight without the BFG, where it took me nearly an hour. I haven't really had to do any full-on death montages here, which does tell me that this challenge is a lot easier than the usual ones that I have been doing, but I'm still pretty new to this space, so I'm figuring stuff out. It's okay. I've already made enough comment bait though, so with this done, we're ready to move on to the final chapter of the level. And compared to what we just did, this was pretty much a walk in the park. So I made my way through the little hallways that we have to go up, and eventually was able to get back up top, where we could finish off the mission. I know I cut a lot from that, but this mission has already gone on for so long, so I wanted to get it done with. And at the start of this level, we're introduced to the Cosmic Baron. And to this day, I still think that this enemy and just the entire area just seems like Stranger Things to me, I don't know why. But yeah, these guys aren't too bad. They have less health than Cyber Demons, but they have a much scarier melee attack and require you to parry 3 hits instead of 2. But really, they're not too bad. They are a lot more aggressive than Cyber Demons, but we don't really have too many problems with them throughout the run, considering they always get close up into our face, and that's our optimal range anyway. They're not too bad. And with one more Baron left to fight before we could leave, we do our duel with him, and we're ready to move on to the next part of the mission. In this fight, we're introduced to the wizard enemy. I'm pretty sure they have a different name, but yeah. They have a bunch of health, and if you don't kill them super quickly, they'll spawn a duplicate of themselves, which also has the same health as them, and you have to kill that duplicate before you can kill the main one. So they're kind of an annoying enemy, but all of their attacks aren't too bad to dodge, and they don't end up causing too many problems, especially when you make use of the buzzsaw and stunning them with the shield bashes. A little bit later on, we're given access to the Dread Mace, and this is easily the best melee weapon in the game once you get used to it. It's a very heavy option, and it has a very lengthy animation, which can be hard to get used to, and it's very punishing if you mess it up, but the damage output it has is absolutely absurd, and the fact that it could stagger anything in the game is also amazing. So this is going to be our new main melee weapon for the rest of the game, although I think in the future, if I do similar runs like this one, I'm probably not going to allow myself to use the Dread Mace, or at very least not allow myself to upgrade it, because it was a very overpowered part of the run for sure. A little bit later, and we have a vagary fight, and we absolutely bop his shit with the mace, which just immediately knocks his armor pieces off, which is pretty nice. And between that and the shield rune, these guys can be taken down really quickly. We still make good use of the shotgun as well, especially since the super shotgun's extremely horizontal spread can entirely hit him even from far away. Kind of similar to the super shotgun versus the Icon of Sin still being effective because he's such a big target in Eternal. A little bit later on in the fight, and we have an Agadon boss fight for a health upgrade. And this is one of the things I really like about Dark Ages. The fact that you sort of clear out all the enemies until you have a duel with the more powerful ones. But I didn't cut any of the damage I did to this guy, the mace just fucks him up. So, you know, it's probably going to get nerfed in the future because the game is still getting updates. But with all that taken care of, we get to come back outside to the initial area of the mission, but this time with a fight spawned in. And this is a pretty big fight, but we're pretty much at the peak of our power now. There's no more upgrades or anything that we can get once we upgrade the mace, and I'll be doing that after this fight. I could have done it before, but I just forgot to, so yeah. But the mace gets really good when you upgrade it because you get to do double hits whenever you parry stuff. Which is great because most of the time the only time you can even use the mace against beefier enemies is if you stagger them with parries. And by that I mostly mean like bosses and stuff, you stagger them by parrying them. The regular enemies you could just do a shield bash or a buzzsaw on obviously. But yeah, this fight didn't give me too many troubles, and I was just having fun with our new melee weapon. And with this fight done, we're able to move on to the next mission. And this mission is another one like Forsaken Plains, where we just have to go to two places and kill some stuff. Truly one of the most unique Doom levels ever made. So I started by going to one of the locations where I found this boss Agadon Hunter and beat the shit out of him, yeah. So yeah, on to the next guy. This is going to be a short mission. So yeah, that wasn't very hard. This mission is kind of just a filler mission though, so we'll get back to some actual gameplay here pretty soon. And we don't have long before we get into the boss fight chapter of the game, which is the final 3 missions. So don't get bored yet. There was also this fight towards the end of the mission, but it wasn't as bad as the other fights, and I already cut most of those out, so we're going to cut most of this out too. There wasn't really anything new to learn from these, and we're kind of in a rush to get to the boss fights at this point. So we're going to start going through missions a little bit quicker now. And hey, check it out, I finally realized I had that giant piece of shit over the screen, and now it's gone, look at that. And yeah, this mission is another one that I couldn't tell you what we're doing. I don't really remember where this even like relates in the story or anything, but we came to this place and we needed to kill some demons, so we're gonna go and do that. Alright, that's enough montage. So this mission's actually pretty long, and I was going to try to just montage the whole thing, but I realized it would be like a 3-minute long segment, and that would probably get boring. But yeah, there wasn't really too much challenge in this mission. Once again, this one kind of just felt like a filler mission, and there's kind of a lot of these in Dark Ages, but I'm not really too surprised by that considering they added like 8 more missions than there was in the previous 2 games. And even those games had a couple of missions that felt like filler, albeit there was quite a few less. I still like the game though, I'm not hating on it or anything. It's just kind of something I've noticed about it. This fight was pretty interesting because it made us deal with two vagaries at the same time, but with all the upgrades that we have now, it's not too bad to take on, especially given the parryable attacks that they do, and the fact that you can kill them with only parries pretty easily anyways. This didn't prove to be too much of a challenge. And with everything taken care of, this mission was complete and we were ready to push into the next. And this is Belly of the Beast. So we skipped the cutscene, but basically the big monster that we freed earlier, it eated us. So now we have to murder it to death from the inside, Gears of War 2 style. And the combat in this area is chock full of enemies. The arenas are still fairly big and spacious, but they are noticeably smaller than a lot of the outdoors ones, and there's some more actual verticality in here than most of the other levels throughout the game. So I thought that was pretty interesting, although verticality doesn't really mean much in this game, and it's mostly just an annoying obstacle because you can't jump very high now. But a couple of definitely not a glory kills later, we were ready to fight this boss that I didn't actually realize a boss in the moment until I got the glory kill on it. Sorry, execution, not a glory kill. And yeah, this was actually a surprise. I was expecting to just kick her like all the other ones, but it was a boss apparently, so yeah, armor upgrade, woo! And once we made it outside, we got to fight this Agadon Hunter, and he managed to get a good hit on me, bringing me down to one shot, but fortunately we were able to finish him off without taking any more damage, and that let us continue on with the mission. But it was a really close call. I nearly got hit after breaking my shield here, but fortunately the mace managed to stagger him out of it and put him into the glory kill state with its damage. Then we had one more fight after walking up a very long flight of stairs that was fortunately just a cutscene, and we ended up just absolutely ripping through this group. The only real threat was the Cyber Demon at the beginning, and the rest gets taken out nice and easy. And with this combat done, we were wrapped up with the mission. And I don't actually remember the name of this mission, but we are introduced to the Berserk power-up, which is insanely overpowered and makes everything easy under pretty much any challenge. This wasn't even hard with no weapons or no shield, because you could just kill everything before it becomes any sort of problem for you. So yeah, because this mission has a whole bunch of Berserk segments, it's a pretty quick one. But hey, on the bright side, I think I might have found the coolest possible way to kill energy shield guys. So that's something. Anyway, we're into the next combat, and this one isn't with the Berserk, but it's still not too bad. Between the mace and the shotgun, it's actually really easy to maintain all of our ammo now, which was kind of an issue in the early game, but the mace gives you full ammo drops every time you use it, and since you can get double hits with it if you parry while you already have a full charge, you can get a ton of ammo from it really quickly. On top of that, a lot of enemies just fire really easy parryable attacks, and that gives us even more access to the Blades rune, which just ups our damage even more. So yeah, this fight doesn't really give us too many problems. But the next fight was a little bit more tricky. In a normal run, this room is super easy because energy shields are very rock, paper, scissory, and all you need to do is use the counteracting choice of either the shield with the bouncing perk or an energy weapon. But in our case, we have no fast way of killing them, and that got me dead here. But in my next try, I decided to just rush the Enforcer enemy and hope that it would despawn all of these guys. And it was still super dangerous, but sure enough, that's exactly how it works. So all we had to do was kill this spider and everybody else despawned in a second. It was actually kind of funny to see. And after that, we had a nice little Cyber Demon duel, which we actually haven't seen much in a while. I think that the game kind of took a break on the Cyber Demons after introducing us to the Barons, so it was fun to get to see him again. But then we have the Hallway of Doom. You get 2 whiplashes with an Enforcer shield that you can't kill before dealing with them just because of the way the room is laid out, and I take care of them with pretty decent amounts of luck. Getting your melees back from parries against them is very helpful, but I got kind of lucky and just used the mace appropriately. Honestly, in Ultra Nightmare, I plan to just use a BFG shot on these guys because this room can be super dangerous, and I kind of just got lucky with their attacks here. If they do their projectile attack, you're basically guaranteed to break your shield or take damage, so kind of a frustrating fight. Then we have one last fight with this Komodo boss, and we take him down in a duel and get our health upgrade. At this point in the run, I've gotten very comfortable with the timing on the super shotgun, and am now even more familiar with the stagger windows in this game because they're very important to playing effectively. Because there are a lot of things in this game that will just absolutely destroy you if you don't wait until they're staggered to do it. But yeah, we were able to take this guy down, and we were ready to move on to the next mission. Actually, there was another big fight in this level, but we got Berserk for it, so I'm guessing you guys already know what's going to happen here. Yeah, thanks Berserk. Next mission. And now we're on to the next mission, and this is where the boss fight chapter of the game begins, because we are now officially in the final 3 levels. So this mission is going to contain the Creedmaker, who for some reason also has a mission where you go around to 2 places and kill everything first, but I'm going to kind of just graze over that because there isn't really anything new at this point, and we're just ripping through the game to get to the end now. So yeah, we went to these 2 spots, and then we flew our dragon at the Creedmaker's ship, and did a bunch of super duper cool and very dynamic dragon fighting, and here we are at the Creedmaker, yay. So as expected, the Creedmaker is probably the easiest, or maybe the second easiest boss in the game, and since we're allowed to parry his attacks again, it's not too bad. And the first phase doesn't really have anything too interesting for us. We just get in his face and absolutely barrel stuff our shotgun at him to do damage, albeit the Impaler or the Accelerator would do damage faster. It's still good damage nonetheless, so I'll take it. On top of the shotgun, we were also getting some really nice chunks using the mace on him, but unfortunately we can't use an energy weapon to break his shields early, so we have to sit here and dodge his attacks for really long amounts of time now. But it's nothing we can't do since the attacks are entirely dodgeable and there's no expectation for you to actually shoot energy weapons at him. But a little bit more fighting and we're finally able to barrel stuff him enough times to get that sweet glory kill on him. And now we're into phase 2 of the Creedmaker, and this time he does his energy attacks for even longer, which is pretty annoying, but like I said, there's still no expectation for you to actually shoot him with energy weapons, and if you just parry and dodge him for long enough, he'll bring his shield down on his own, so it's no big deal. Parrying alone doesn't do enough damage to his shield unfortunately, so we just have to wait it out. The Creedmaker isn't the most exciting boss fight in the game, so I'm probably just going to run this as a bit of a time lapse because he makes this fight take way longer by doing this energy shield stuff. But a lot of shotgun shells later, and we get the second glory kill on him, ending the fight, and letting us move on to the next mission. But first, I gotta show my favorite cutscene. You know. I justify this very personal kill, because just in case you guys forgot the canon lore behind the Dark Ages Doom guy, this was the only man fatter than Dark Ages Doom guy, so we had to kill him to become the #1 fat man in the universe. Just kidding, I like to make fun of how slow Dark Ages Doom guy is though. Next mission. And we start off this mission with a mech section, but I'm not completely cutting that out because I need a couple of seconds before the music I'm using fully ramps up, so I'm just breaking the 4th wall for a second. Any second now, almost there. Here we go. So yeah, unlike the previous, this boss fight was actually pretty hard. Honestly, it was mostly self-inflicted here. I should have spent less time trying to shoot the shotgun between every block, and more time just blocking all the hits so I could damage him while he's staggered. But I was being a greedy little goblin, and trying to get in all the damage I could, and it was making me die quite a lot. But eventually, we were bound to get a run where I didn't get killed, and here's how it went. And for whatever reason, the second phase ends up being easier than the first. I don't think he gets any new attacks, but he puts up these spikes that give you a ton of health and armor, so it tends to just be easier than the first phase. On top of that, after spending a little bit more time fighting him, I'm getting more comfortable with when I can shoot my shotgun and when I can't. The sad thing about the super shotgun is that you don't get a lot of damage in during these stuns, but you'll still see me try to do it sometimes because it is nice to just get some extra damage. It does at least give a big chunk on the stun meter, which is nice for safety, but it's not the best gun for this, but that's okay. Coming into the third round, and he does this attack that wastes a bunch of time but isn't actually that hard. I tried to meme here and just shoot it out of the air, but yeah, that didn't work with this gun. That's basically an impaler strat only. But since they give you back so much health anyway, it doesn't matter. So we have to deal with this attack, and of course I managed to break my shield and lose almost all my health, so we're off to a great start. Good going, buddy. But in the next try, we don't fumble quite so hard, but I am still a bit of a goober and managed to just miss a ton of blocks in a row and end up dying, but it was just a massive skill issue if I'm being honest. It wasn't even the gun's fault or anything. But after those massive wastes of time, we were ready for our third try, and this time we were going to take him down. We start off with a nice mace smack, and then start laying into him with the shotgun, and it's kind of just the same stuff as the previous two phases, except now he can do that time-wasting attack he does at the start later on in the fight. But with these spikes being here to give us back health and armor, it's really not too hard to stay alive here. We just have to get the fight going at all, and then it's pretty easy. So without too much trouble, we're ready to finish off Azrak, and push into the final mission of the game. Pranked you, I died again. But for real now, let's kill this guy. It's getting kind of old. And I don't know about you guys, but I'm ready to finish off this challenge. And what better way to start off the final level of the game than with this epic movement? It ultimately didn't accomplish anything. I'm just on the other side of the fight now and still have to do it. But hey, it looked cool, and that's what really counts, right? And this fight is pretty cool because it has the one and only Enforcer Cyber Demon, which is a pretty cool thing to have. I kind of think he deserves to need 3 parries to stagger instead of just 2 like all the other ones, but whatever, I'll take it. He ends up going down without too much trouble, and this level always just kind of feels anticlimactic because if you ask me, it's just easier than the last boss fight, and so it kind of just leads to me wondering why this level even exists. Like, we really could have just ended the game in the last fight and just actually killed Azrak. But yeah, a little bit farther, and we're ready to finish off this Komodo, and that ends the fight for us. Then we have some puzzles to do, and I always wondered why this lever exists, because the box is already blocking our way in here, and there's just no point in having this door in the way too. It just doesn't do anything. It's, yeah, very silly, thank you. In this fight, we're faced by a buffed up Agadon Hunter, and yeah, he just decides to one-shot me. But this time, I rushed the Enforcer down so he wasn't buffed anymore, and that made things a lot easier for us. Now, it's just a regular Agadon duel, but this is still easily the weirdest one. Like, I don't know what happened here. For starters, I got insane one-shot protection there, and now I'm like stuck against the wall here, but I managed to kill him somehow, so yeah, that worked out. Glad this is an Ultra Nightmare. And this fight had a pretty tough combination of heavies as well, because we had the Baron, which was constantly pressuring us, but we also had a wizard enemy who was spawning up a bunch of projectiles that pierced through the shield. So I kind of had to decide what I was going to do, and I decided to go for the Baron first because he was so much pressure. Oh yeah, did I mention there's a Cyber Demon too? Because there was, so that's cool. Yeah, they really throw everything at you here, but with all the practice we've gotten with the Super Shotgun, I'm pretty comfortable with it now, so we're able to make it through this part without dying too. Though it does end up coming down to a bit of a close call. And to finish it off, we have one last leader fight before we can get into the final boss. But at this point, we're about as powerful as we can be, and mixing that with all the practice we have with the shotguns now, I'm ready to take it on. But we had a pretty close call here when I got my shield broken and then took a heavy hit from the Battle Knight. Fortunately, I did a move I learned in the shieldless run, which is to look to the side and hit a sprint jump to dodge things. And that works because you can't actually get enough speed to dodge things without sprinting. So you have to do it like that instead of just strafing like you normally could. But at this point, we were ready to fight with the boss, and it was just another Cyber Demon boss. For whatever reason though, it lets you hit executes on them like super early, like they could still have almost a quarter of their health and it lets you do it. So it makes these bosses kind of easy to deal with. But he's taken care of and we're ready to push into the final boss of the game. And that's how I beat Doom the Dark Ages using only the shotguns. So this ended up being one of the easier challenges I've done, but I would love to hear you guys' feedback in the comments if you haven't already. Also, I've been moving away from playing MMOs, and I'm trying to do stuff like challenge runs or just difficult runs of games. So if you guys have any suggestions for me in the comments, make sure you let me know. I do actually get a notification on my phone every time you guys send one, so I will read them all. The algorithm's been a little bit tough on me trying to switch topics on my channel, so if you're interested, I'd love if you guys went and watched my last Skyrim video, because it didn't get a lot of attention. Also, I've got a Discord if you're interested in that, and you can get pinged with notifications of when I go live, or post videos, so hop in that if you're interested, it's all in the description. Thanks for watching, bye guys!